I leaned over the toilet again, and I still had 5 minutes until I needed to make it back for my match. And I wondered if my teammate knew that his partner was so nervous he couldn't keep his lunch down. See, something changed before my matches. This rush of cortisol sent my heart rate through the roof. Couldn't keep my food down. Hands would shake. But I did make it back, just in time to compete. And we won that match against two of the most prolific Quake players of all time in overtime. And when I stood up from my desk, there was 30 people surrounding me applauding. All of that buildup for nothing. Why was I so nervous? And why couldn't I just be confident? So a little bit about me. I'm a former professional gamer turned finance professional. And in my career, I have often found myself in rooms that I have felt unqualified for, but have performed anyway. Unqualified on paper, but ready for. And I attribute that readiness to the lessons I learned while competing in a video game called Quake. Now, this isn't a talk about esports specifically, but I will talk a little bit about Quake just to give you some background. It's not a particularly well-known esport, but amongst those in the industry, it's the godfather. It's among the most difficult games to be played, which is relevant for this next point. In esports, there's this phrase that gets thrown around. Get good. It's a mild form of trash talk that you'll inherently run into, but at its core, it's one of the most culturally important components of professional gaming. Most major tournaments have open qualification slots, and at any moment, your moat as a player or a team is only as deep as your skill set. The cultural default is that excellence is rewarded, and to succeed, you must get good. So today, I'm going to tell you some stories from this unforgiving environment and the lessons that they taught me that I've carried with me through my professional finance career. So we'll begin with the first. As a competitor, your time is your most scarce resource. And this leads to a lot of insecurity. If I'm not practicing right now, then my competition is, then I'm losing. So I practiced, and I practiced, and I practiced. And it worked, sort of. It dealt with the insecurity. I was practicing enough, and I got better at what I already understood about the game. But most importantly, it was comfortable, defensible even. I could look myself in the mirror and say, I worked hard. But the thing about practice is it's kind of like this machine. It takes the ideas you run through it and turns them into results. And if you run the same ideas through it over and over again, the results stop changing. And my fuel had gone stale, and I needed new ideas. And so I looked where no one else was looking. I looked to data, and I found opportunities, strategies that other people hadn't considered in their game plans. And I took those ideas, and I ran them through the machine, and the results changed. This is the first lesson that I learned in esports. I had to transition from a consumer of comfort to an investor who seeks returns in exchange for their time. Now, in Quake, there were no coaches. You would lose a game, and maybe you could review game film or talk to some of the other players about what they thought, but there was no one guiding you to answer that ever-important question of what went wrong. So you would ask yourself all of the important questions. Was it this choice or that choice? Was it just variance? Did I just suck today? What was it? Whatever you decide, get ready. The next week, month, or year, you will spend practicing at that. I hope you choose right, because if you choose wrong, the result will be the same again. So, in these types of environments, you deal with ambiguity, hundreds of variables, one outcome, and zero certainty. You must learn to simplify the problem. And so I set out on a mission to do that, and I succeeded. I created a metric that I used over and over again to predict win probability. Simple, but it worked. It wasn't important that I built a model. That didn't matter. The data analysis was not the story. The story was learning to understand that I needed to decipher what mattered from noise, what I could learn from variance. I didn't recreate something that nobody else had ever thought of before. It wasn't like I was a super novel thinker in this regard, but it was effective. And it answered this one question and taught me this one lesson. When you're inevitably faced with indecision or ambiguity, you have to remember it's okay to go with the strategy somebody else doesn't consider. And above all else, never forget when you're faced with analysis paralysis, you can't win if you don't keep playing. So play on. Now, I bought every book I could on confidence. I spent hours of my life trying to be confident, and it was a waste of my time. The only thing I was learning was that there was no silver bullet. The strategies didn't work, and the books weren't helping. So let's talk about what confidence is and isn't. We love the idea of confidence because it absolves us of understanding what it truly means to master something. If I was only confident, I could show everybody how great I am. We pretend that confidence is this resin that we can pour over our skill sets that make them unbreakable under pressure. And what I have found is that under pressure, our level of mastery always supersedes how we feel. Focusing on confidence was my most necessary failure. It's ultimately what led me to not achieve my dreams in esports. Instead, I should have focused explicitly on building skill. What I needed to understand was that mastery was preventing me from executing under pressure. See, my skills were crumbling because I wasn't good enough. And once I saw them crumble once, how could I not be nervous? I've seen them crumble before. So the lesson here is that while we do feel this draw to confidence and feeling better, at the end of the day, sometimes you feel great and you win. And sometimes you walk out of a bathroom, empty stomach and hands shaking, and you win anyway. Don't focus on feeling better. Focus on being as good as you can be. Get good. Now, I did not achieve my esports dreams. And I now know that these failures were not the price that I paid. They were the investments that I made. And I did not reap from these investments until much later. And I benefited in ways I frankly did not expect. If you take nothing from me today, it's this. Excellence is not complicated. It's a function of your mastery. And mastery is not complicated. It's a function of your skill. But skill is complicated because there are no shortcuts. What you decide to focus on will ultimately determine what skills you build. And those skills determine the outcomes in your life and in your career. And ultimately, the currency to build skill is your time. So I challenge everybody, don't just spend your time, invest it.